Welcome to That 30 Show, a podcast where we talk about the good, the bad, and the surprising parts of our 30s. I'm G, and I'm finally 30. I'm excited to find out if 30 really is the new 20, because if it is, then the best years are yet to come.
And I'm David. I'm entering my mid-30s. I used to have no back pain or trouble sleeping, but now I live off a healthy diet of self-help books and dream of being in bed by 10 p.m. every night. Join us each week as we try to figure out together what life in your 30s is all about.
Welcome back to That 30 Show.
Welcome back, and welcome Samson to our second guest episode of season 2.
Hey,
How's your morning
Samson.
going so far?
Doing well, just on my third cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Had a slow start.
You and G are both coffee people then. G, have you had your coffees yet this morning? Are you
Yeah, I
awake
have.
and alert?
Yeah,
I need my
I love
caffeine
it.
in the morning.
same. How do you take your coffee, G?
I usually just have it black, so
Perfect.
I'm
We'll get along
try not
just
to
fine.
add in the sugars and the creamers, but sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I started drinking coffee at like 17 straight black because I didn't want the extra cream and sugar. Just never stopped since.
Yeah.
I'm
David,
not a
you're
coffee
lucky.
person, so whenever I hear people say they drink it like they have it black, like black coffee, I'm like, oh, I think that's the most legit kind. It's like you're a real true coffee person, and if you have like a lot of cream, a lot of sugar, that's not like real coffee.
It's hardly a coffee anymore at that point. That's just like a sugary drink. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
I still drink Keurig coffee, so I don't know how legit that is.
It's all good.
So as you all might know, if you are watching us on video or on YouTube, Samson's got this swanky like background with his screw up, level up. So we're going to talk all about that because Samson's actually a podcast host himself, and maybe it's going to be a bit of a weird but hopefully interesting experience for you, Samson, to be in the guest seat this time. Usually you're on this side of things, but we're really excited to have Samson on because and he'll tell us a bit more about his podcast, but Grow Up, Level Up, there's this theme there about play. And I think with Samson's background that I'll have him introduce himself in a second, there's a lot of play that is involved in his life. And last time we had a guest on, Michael, we talked a lot all about work and career. And so when it comes to work-life balance, I think what we hope the next hour will allow us to explore is what does that life part look like, especially in our 30s, especially as adults, when things get so stressful and so demanding, and there never seems to be enough time for that leisure or that pleasure. And it's like every minute that's not optimized or productive or like making money for us or upskilling ourselves, it might feel like it's a waste or like we're falling behind. So we hope that Samson can give us some of his insights, maybe just from his guests too, that he's talked about on his podcast. But Samson, maybe just to start, tell us a bit about your podcast. Why did you start it? And we'll go from there.
Sure, yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on the 30 Show. Big fan. My name is Samson. I am a community manager at a tech accelerator here in Vancouver, Launch Academy. But historically, I've also been a child and youth care worker, meaning that I've worked with kids that have challenges being in classrooms, making friends, or controlling their emotions. So I also have that background. That's actually what I studied for in the first place. But yeah, that is kind of my career background. Grow Up, Level Up is an interview podcast that I decided to start where I talk to folks about the fun and games that helped us grow up, but also the fun and games that we choose to partake in today as adults. And the fun and games is a broad term because that also includes stuff like creative endeavors or hobbies or sports. Basically anything that you do for fun that you aren't necessarily making money on. Like David said, I feel like a lot of our adult lives are spent thinking about how do we make more money? how do we optimize our time to make more money, which is important. But I also feel like the concept of play, and not just playing for entertainment, which I know we'll dive into a little bit later, the concept of play is lost. Just the concept of having fun and doing stuff without purpose almost is lost in our adult lives. So I really wanted to start this podcast, not just to highlight how adults play in their lives, but also the importance of play and how we can integrate that more.
Well, I'm really excited for this conversation because I think this side is something that I'm very passionate and excited about. Last time I know we had Michael, and he's very passionate about his work, and I don't think I'm necessarily on that same level as he is about work. So I'm looking forward to diving in more about what play means in adult life.
I was going to say, G, that like we're just reflecting on this dynamic here with Michael's conversation and what you bring as well. I think Michael mentioned on his episode how, you are really sort of driven in your own way to like experience life to the fullest. And I think you say you're very passionate about this side. In my opinion, you're very good at this side of life. Like she's really good at play. She's good at having fun. It definitely doesn't get in the way of her feeling like she's living, the productive or fulfilling life. So we'll maybe get your insights too, G, about how you manage that sort of balance.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I have the right definition of play. Like maybe Samson, to start, how do you define play? How does your background influence your perspective on play?
Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to caveat that I'm not like a psychologist expert on
You're not?
this.
Damn it. You invited the wrong person.
Yeah, I'm not. Sorry, I'm not a doctor. But I did take a little bit of like psychology study and counseling studies, and I have a lot of experience in play, and maybe I'll share a bit about that. But for me, play is something that it's like an opportunity to practice skills that we might not be able to practice every day. And that's a very psychological way of analyzing it. Like plays for fun. That is number one. And then number two, it's also a way to practice those skills that maybe we don't get to play with every day. I kind of came to that conclusion through two-ish experiences. The first one, bringing you all back to me. I'm 17 years old, working at my first summer camp, and there's this course there called the low ropes course, and it is it's like a little forest area with ropes, platforms. Like there's like a rope swing. There's like a rickety bridge that's really only like a foot or two off the ground. It's not very high at all, but the way the team leader at the summer camp was explaining it to us camp counselors was that the purpose of this is to experience risky play. It's to give kids the opportunity to practice those experiences of fear, of risk, of pushing one's own boundaries without it actually being dangerous. So that kind of really stuck with me. It's and it's fun. It's like Rocky, you're playing with your friends, you're jumping really far. Same concept with playgrounds. It's a way to go through those emotions in a way where it doesn't really matter. Like the goal is to have fun. So that is one way. That's when I kind of started thinking about, maybe play isn't just a waste of time. Like growing up in an Asian household is like, get off MapleStory or you should be studying, right? So play was always seen as like a distraction. The second one was as I went through my time working through schools and working with like kids with diverse needs, mostly the ones that have trouble or challenges building relationships with one another, not just other kids, but also adults. One thing that really hooked them in was playing games. So that would be stuff like playing chess or even talking about games that they play at home, like Fortnite. Being able to speak their language and talk about these fun experiences help build that relationship and help nurture those social skills so that they could bring it to other aspects of their life. And that couldn't be done in like a classroom environment or like a teacher environment. That was done in a mutual friendly playing environment, those relationship building and social skills. That being said, if I ever get off tangent or you want more clarity, please let me know. I do know I like to ramble, but yeah, I guess in the end, play is a way to have fun, number one, and number two, practice those skills that we might not get to practice every day. One more thing is like, I work a desk job. I spend a lot of time just looking at boxes online. Rarely do I get to sit face to face with another person and do that face-to-face interaction with them. So those skills, if I didn't have opportunities like playing games or maybe even doing like a podcast like this, I won't get to practice those interpersonal skills.
I was thinking like, on the playground and socializing with friends in school, that's, to me anyway, seems quite intuitive. Like that makes sense. I see the benefit there. And I think where the challenge, I don't know, challenge is the right word, but where the difficulty sometimes for folks to see the importance or relevance is when we do get older. So Samson, actually, I don't know if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am 29.
Oh, you're not part of the 30s club yet. Okay.
Almost there.
My birthday's in March. I'm in the what do you call it? The ending streak or whatever.
We'll induct you as an honorary member.
Yeah.
But as we enter our 30s and as we live through our 30s, becoming more like, fully fledged adults, like we're not going to play on a playground and stuff. You mentioned, the podcast, you mentioned whatnot, but so what's the adult playground look like? Like
Yeah, I think, that is very interesting because we see it online as, in my opinion at least, it's like dinner parties or board game nights or sports. I think is a really common one, like going to the soccer field and I almost said going to the soccer field and playing hockey, going to the ice rink and playing hockey, going to the soccer field and playing soccer. I think those are not only but let's talk sports. Like sports is often seen as, this is how I get my physical exercise in. This is, I need to be physical anyways. But rarely is the part of, I guess, social aspect brought up. People talk about relationships. I don't think people also talk about the fact that you are learning to work as a team or learning to go through conflict. Those are kind of the spots that I think play really helps. I'll give an example, actually. So my fiance and I, we love to play Overwatch, and we like to duo, meaning that we play together on the same team, but with different roles and support each other. Oftentimes, we get frustrated with each other, but then like it can go two ways. It can go to that like, we're upset at each other. We're going to bring that into like our in real life lives and hold that against each other, or we are frustrated with each other and then we work it out and practice those frustrations and skills in something that I don't want to say doesn't matter because we are passionate about our rank, but in a way that I guess like no one's actually getting hurt. Like no one is falling apart. There's no money exchange. All the sensitive stuff is not touched. All those skills of like conflict resolution, of frustration, like anger, or like those really tricky emotions are exercised and practiced in a game. In this one, it's Overwatch.
Yeah, it's like basically building your communication skills in a safe space, if you will,
yes.
Because it's harmless, I guess, if you're arguing about video games and board games. Although, I don't know, when my friends play board games, it gets pretty intense and they end up like, yelling at each other. All for good fun, but I'm like, guys.
Friendships do get ruined in board games, I think.
Yeah,
right? They do.
And like the caveat of that is like, I feel like everyone going into these experiences should have that mentality in mind that we are going to, if these come up, it stays in the game. I guess it's common in sports, right? Like whatever happens on the court stays on the court. That's tricky because sometimes things bubble up and spill other places, or you're like capping emotions that way. But if it's like, I don't know if consent is the right word, but if everyone kind of agrees to that type of thinking, I think it's a pretty like healthy place to practice those emotions as opposed to like at work or at home.
So sports and video games and board games, those are great examples. And I think I really see how, you can practice those conflict resolution skills, those teamwork skills. But gee, I'm just thinking about you. You don't, last time I checked, I don't think you have a regular sport that you play. You're not really into like board games that much. And you don't play video games. But Samson did mention dinner parties. Do you think, G, that's your world, right, G? So like, how do you reflect on play, G, when you're not like nerds like Samson and I?
Well, we do play our fair share of board games, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the times we are, hanging out, just catching up or having drinks out there. And it's interesting because I never really thought about that as play. I think it's, it's definitely a social activity where you can hang out with your friends and not think about work and just relax. I never really thought about it as play, but I mean, yeah, I think it depends on how you look at play, right? If you look at play like it's something that's like leisurely to help build skills like communication and interacting with people, then yeah, I think it does count. One thing for me though, when you were talking about risk and how kids when they go play sports, like they partake in leisure activities, they have that like risk factor. I find that is definitely hard to do or hard to have as you're getting older. I take like snowboarding, for example. It is terrifying to fall and to take those risks. Whereas you see the little kids and they're just like, whatever, they fall and they get up and they like go super fast, they crash and burn, it's all good. But because we have like physical limitations now with our bodies, I feel like it's harder for us to sometimes take those same risks and engage in the same activities as kids used to do. So I kind of wish that like when I was a kid, I did more of those kind of risky play. Maybe it would have like influenced me now, but yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm kind of glad you brought up risk again with your dinner party experience. I think the risk looks different as adults. It's, there's the physical risk, of course, like you said. I also wish I learned to snowboard, but I had to ski. But stuff like what's a physical risk I'm scared of doing? Jet skiing, actually. I'm scared.
Yeah,
I can swim.
Any sort of
water sport. But that's a long-winded way of saying like I feel like the risk also includes I don't know if emotional, mental, maybe psychological. Those dinner parties, for example, like maybe you are inviting a person that's a friend of a friend. You never met this person, but your buddy said, "Oh, they're cool. Like they can join our friend group."
Mm-hmm.
Like I would consider that a risk as well. Having to reintroduce yourself and figure out how to sum up your 20 years of career experience into one paragraph to best introduce yourself to this person. And it goes the other way as well. Like, do we want to keep interacting with this person? It's the risk of making a new social connection or making a new friendship.
I mean, I relate to that so hard. Maybe G less so as a very, hardcore extrovert. As an introvert, I mean, introvert doesn't necessarily mean not outgoing, but certainly with those introvert energy levels that I have, anytime I go to a social engagement, it's a huge effing risk. Like, oh my gosh. Like there are sometimes when I get invited to things and it's like, there's 100 people invited. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to that. There's way too much risk there. I don't know 80% of the people. And I love that way of thinking about it because I think when I was younger in university years, I used to actively and consciously decide to go to these house parties where I only know the host. And I'm like, I'm putting myself out there. I'm taking a risk here to challenge myself. And that was, and not in my 30s, I guess, but still it's an adult form of play, I guess, is putting myself in an environment where I don't know how I'm going to feel. Maybe I'm going to feel like neglected, or maybe I'm going to feel like disliked or unwelcomed. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Social settings are huge risks for me. I mean, G wants me to go to her Halloween party in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, I don't want to go. There's so much risk.
It's risky play, can't grow without it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely looks different from when you're a kid to adult because, you're focusing more on those relationships now versus like just taking care of yourself. Because kids don't really, I mean, they don't really have falling outs. They like, they might, but they'll get back together and play in the next like day or so. Versus in when you're an adult, there's definitely a lot more risks on that front. So.
Yeah, I feel like that's a great example of not wanting to go to the Halloween party because it's new. It's like, as a kid, you're kind of forced to go to school. You're kind of forced to go through these experiences, meeting with other kids to make sure you build those social skills. But as an adult, and you get to choose. I find a lot of adults like part of it makes sense. You're an adult, you have all these other responsibilities, you're emotionally tired and physically more tired than you are as a child. So do you want to push yourself even more after like a long week at work? So it is, definitely really tricky as adults to go through that like socialization and make new friends and go through all that again.
Well, you're really building the case for play, because I feel like a lot of people do feel guilty when they're, spending time playing versus doing something quote unquote productive with their lives, like trying to advance their career or advancing their goals. But there's actually a lot to be learned from play. So, it's important for us to be able to do that. David, you like a lot of board games. What other forms of play do you think you do?
Sports is one. Board games, I'm not sure. Haven't you're putting me on the spot here.
This podcast, I feel like, could be a form of play. It's it's risky.
It's risky. Certainly creativity in creating content like this, and I think creativity, we'll get to that shortly, I think. But creativity and play, I think, go hand in hand. So I think this project, G, you and I do, definitely allows us to play a little bit, which is a big reason why I want to do it, is to have something outside of work that engages me in a creative way. Arguably in a playful way. But I actually don't play board games that much anymore, partly because I'm like, I got so many things I need to do, and so maybe I should
you should engage in more play.
Should get back to it. Before we get to the next question, I wanted to jump off of something you said earlier, Samson, about Overwatch, and give a quick sort of recommendation related to that, which is there's a video, speaking of video games and skills that we can learn from them, especially when we play with friends. Samson, have you heard of a game called It Takes Two?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite ones.
It? Yeah. So I'm not a video game person. How would you describe this game? It's a cooperative game. Is that what you call them?
Yeah. So It Takes Two is a co-op game where you have to play the game with two people. It can't be played with just one. And each player takes control of one of the two characters. And through the game, you go through different game mechanics. Like there's platforming, which is like jumping platform to platform. There's puzzles. There's platforming puzzles. What else? Overall, there's like a really big story, and the story is something that really is that kind of motivated me to finish the game. I finished it with my fiance as well, and it's a story about like divorce and relationship. So It Takes Two is a cooperative game. You do play at the same time. You go through these challenges together. You can also mess with each other. There's a lot of opportunities in the game where you can like electrocute your partner playing the game. There's another part of the game where you can play piano with the other your other player and hop up and down, control these little characters. It's super charming. It's actually one of my I think top 10 games of all time.
Oh wow!
It's very, very good, and the story is very special as well. Yeah.
So I'm glad you know sort of why I bring it up, because I've only played it briefly with my partner. But even in that brief time, like there was so much opportunity for learning and growth between us, especially as a relationship that isn't 5 or 10 years old. There was a lot of like, oh, okay, I see a little bit of frustration here. Okay, so how do we deal with that? Or because it's a cooperative game, right? So like our success requires us to work as a team in this game in a very, very interactive way. So you can't move forward without each other doing your own separate parts.
Yeah.
And so in that way, you really learn to depend on each other. You have to communicate. You're like, okay, all right, I'm ready. Okay, you go now. Like, okay, do this. And then, okay, I'm ready. Okay, no, too quickly. Over here, like run over here. And it was great. And I think we ended up having like conversations to debrief about like, okay, you know what? That way we communicated, like we could have done that better. How do we want to do it next time? Like, or what works for us? And so I think that video game and perhaps other video games, especially cooperative ones or ones where you have to work as part of a team, even if you don't play like, let's say some traditional one like Call of Duty, you know, you got to work as part of a team to take down the other team. There's a lot of communication there about like, all right, you know, you go this direction, you go that direction, or like, and then when you fail each other, there might be some conflict. So I guess in a way, I'm just trying to sell the benefits of video games and games in general, to give you a chance to work right collaboratively with your friends or your partner.
No, it's those kind of experiences that I think make video games really special. I'm a huge gamer, in case anybody didn't notice.
grow up, level up, gave us
so like those are super common in well, for me, I'm a competitive shooter person, so those experiences are very common. Those like 3, 2, 1, and then like hit me, and then you all go in at the same time. It Takes Two, is on my like top 10 because they're exactly what you said. It's got all those types of experiences where you need to work on timing and working through frustration, and I think It Takes Two is extra special because the story is so interesting. It's not something that is common in video games, where they talk about like divorce and working through like
Sims,
like a child. Deeper than Sims. And there are some like, there are some like really, really big emotional beats in there that I don't know if you got there, David, but it was
probably not
like,
yet.
Laughed video game cried, marriage.
Yeah.
Well, something else that I just thought of, we've been talking about how gaming and video games can improve, communication and relationships, but also individually, I think there's a case to be made for building, your cognitive abilities. Like if you're someone who builds puzzles, for example, or last episode, David, we talked about like sports, and how some sports will help you improve, your memory, like dancing, for example. You have to learn choreography, improve your memory. And even as you get older, they're always telling like senior folks to do Sudoku and do crossword puzzles because it helps your brain like kind of continue to work out your brain, if you will. So, it builds all those individual, it builds your brain health too, I think. Like
I don't know if soft skills is the right word. I think that's usually saved for social skills, but like your cognitive ability, your fine motor skills. Sports is really like the common one. Like people play sports, it's like, oh, they're working on their health, but part of health is those fine motor skills, those cognitive abilities that you don't necessarily see outwardly. I think games and fun are really great ways to do that. Like I think for an older generation, at least my grandparents, they didn't really grow up playing, or this concept of play wasn't common. They're immigrants from Hong Kong, so generationally, it's definitely a generational thing. So their entertainment is just watching TV, which is also, I don't know, it could be considered a form of play. It's not very active, but I challenge them all the time to like, just play some Wii bowling, just play some mahjong even, or Sudoku, just to keep those skills sharp. I think our generation, I don't know, when we get around to their age, our old folks' homes will have like 10 PCs facing each other, and people will still be playing League of Legends with each other. I think there's a big generational shift there where play is not only more accessible, but it's valued.
I mean, I'm looking at the title in your background, Grow Up, Level Up, and think about our podcast about 30s. There's a notion out there, I think, with some people, or many people, when you grow up, you stop playing video games, right? Like that's what you do when you're younger, when you have less responsibilities, or when you have more time. certainly I know folks, like Henry, he was on a podcast in season 1. He's a new dad. He used to have his game nights with his boys like almost every night. And then he decided that that's one of the things that he had to cut out because his time was more restricted. So I don't know what you have to say, Samson, about the pushback against games or play when you get older and when life gets more real. I mean, you're not quite in your 30s yet, so maybe this is something that you have to learn and experience for yourself. I mean, so maybe you don't have an answer yet, but I don't know if you've interviewed or have friends in their 30s or 40s.
I think I definitely have friends that are older than me. I think I think play just comes out in different forms when you get older. It doesn't necessarily have to be sports or video games or board games. And this is jumping back to my definition of play. I feel like play is just something that is active, something that is interactive, where you are cognitively, physically engaging yourself. That doesn't necessarily have to benefit you. Well, the benefit could be fun, but it's something that's interactive, that's not done to make money. It's something that you do that you want to do. Kind of for the sake of doing it, kind of that kind of for the sake of doing it that you want to do, that is not just passive. The comparison I always draw is like TV and movies. When you watch a TV show, you're just sitting there and you're just taking things one way, and that's towards you.
Darn, that's not considered play? Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. This is all.
I agree with you, Samson, though, that TV and movies, I wouldn't consider it play because there is no interactive element.
Yeah.
It's but at the same time, G, maybe if through that TV watch, that movie watch, you go to your friends, you make a podcast about it, and you're kind of critically thinking about it and maybe putting your spin on it, I would consider that play, because you are interacting with like, you're going beyond just it going one way. You are also putting something back out. Stuff like, or even just like in a group chat, like my friends and I are watching Loki right now, and we watch Loki and then we talk about, it's like, oh, what do you think's going to happen here? What do you think's going to happen there? Here's my theory. I think that's kind of play. You're kind of working through those it's playful banter. Maybe it's like, my buddy put out this crazy theory and I'm like, no, you're crazy, dude. This is what's going to happen. We're practicing those conflict resolution skills, more or less. I went on a big tangent there. What was the question again?
No. I think that's great. I think we're just talking about like play as adults, and the pressure to grow up and stop playing games, and how we are playing even when we're just watching TV and talking about it with friends. Yeah, I haven't started Loki yet, but I don't know. Is it good so far?
It's pretty fun. Yeah, it's pretty better than what Marvel has put out lately.
Oh, that's saying something.
Yeah. Or even like I guess a more common one would be like watching sports, like watching football on TV. It's one thing to just sit and watch other people play the game, but then what if you're like getting together with your friends and watching together? It's a different experience, and you're using those social skills and maybe even like party planning skills and all that at the same time.
I wonder, and this is just a general question I just thought of, I wonder if there is a bit of a it's not like a clear distinction, as with everything, there's a bit of overlap, but when it comes to men and women, I wonder if play looks a bit different, because I feel like video games and sports, they tend, again, there's no clear distinction here, please, I'll clear, let me clarify that, but there's a general trend, I think, where it's more common for men to be into video games and sports and like physical forms of play, or talking about sports. And I think play for females may tend generally to look more like the social or emotional aspects of play.
Yeah, totally. It starts with kids as well. Like, if you go to a playground, you'll see maybe the girls playing house on the playground and the boys playing soccer on the field. Of course, that's all anecdotal. It's definitely a sign of the times and the way we look at research and all that. But I think definitely it's also part of culture. is what I'm trying to say. Is it's stuff that's reinforced because of the culture we live in Canada. I think as adults, depends on your friend groups, depends on who you grew up with and what kind of relationships you make. But yeah, no, I think you got a great point there that play does look different between men and women and other people. I think I saw an Instagram story last night where someone was like eating cheese on their story, like a big wheel of cheese with a big group of people. I'm like, is that play? That was weird.
Any sort of social interaction.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. Like when I think of girls, like if I consider play with the girls, it's like going out for, a drink or like doing some kind of activity together that's like, I don't know, we're going to like puppy yoga or something like that. Oh,
interesting.
Versus the guys need, like, a lot of the times they'll need something to kind of like talk about, like a video game or like sports, like something like a topic that they're all interested in to like basically engage in, because there's no other conversation outside of that. They need to be talking about this like one team or this one video game. So I think I can definitely see some of that.
Mm-hmm. I think there's less communication when guys play and hang out. Like I know a friend who recently wanted to catch up with his boys, but when he went on the bike ride, apparently the entire bike ride was in silence. And it's just like we're just here, we're just biking hard, let's go. Or like you hang out with some guys and then they have wives or kids, and then they go home and then their partner's like, oh, so like how's so and so doing? And they're like, I think it's good. It's like, what you guys talk about? Nothing much.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I totally get that. One thing that I guess that me and my friends do, I found out this is pretty common, is that everyone goes into one Discord server and then just kind of like hangs out, chats a little bit. Everyone plays their own games, maybe like in pairs of two, but everyone's in the same chat. We stream share our games. Everyone's like maybe tuning in, watching, but it's like a group chat of like 10 people and we're just like hanging out. And we do this every night. Going back to one of the experiences where I realized play was important was actually at the beginning of the pandemic, when everything shut down. There was no going to bars and going to puppy yoga. For me and my friends and like my gamer network, everyone kind of shrugged their shoulders and was like, oh, like not much has changed. We still get on Discord every night and chat and play video games. Maybe some of our games change, but I have this other friend group from school. They're all women. Like I said, I went to child and youth care. They're all women, and they were not freaking out, but they were like kind of like, what do we do now? Like how do I use Zoom? How do I use Discord? They were confused, but that was a point of realization for me, that I realized like, oh, maybe not everybody else gets off work, does their chores, then hops on Discord for 2-3 hours a night and plays video games, chatting with their friends. Like this is not a common thing. And then that was what I realized. I was like, oh, okay. So this is like a unique gamer thing that when I met other people like Lynn, who was on my podcast, she also does it with her friends with a different video game and organizes tournaments. So like that is like a nightly play that happens for certain interests groups of people, but not for others.
Yeah, there's certainly different types of play. Now you're talking about the pandemic, and I was thinking back to like, how did we play when we couldn't see each other for a few months? Like, what did we end up doing? I remember we would just be on like the app House Party a lot. Like everyone's just hanging out in this like virtual room as if we're all together.
Yeah.
I feel like we interacted even more during that time because we couldn't see each other. So we're always on this like in this like virtual house together. But for me, I think like talking about creativity a little bit, I think that's when I kind of got into more creative stuff, because it was like I couldn't see anybody. So I had to count on, doing my own thing. So I remember I was scrapbooking a little bit during the pandemic. I did a lot of like furniture rearranging, like design and trying to
that's cool.
Trying to decorate my place. There's so many more, like as we're talking, I'm just thinking of more and more things that could be considered play and involving creativity into that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess speaking of creativity, I don't know if you have anything to add to that topic, Samson. But when I think of play, I also think of creativity. I talk about creativity as a big part of why I find value in doing this podcast. So how do you relate to creativity in your role, in your life, rather?
Yeah, it's a great question. Creativity is something that I actually kind of struggled with for a long time. I don't know if you've heard the saying where it's like everybody needs 3 hobbies or something. It was like one that makes money, one that you do for fun, and one that's creative. But for me, like creativity is something I'm really passionate about, but also I wasn't able to put it into one little box. Like I'm not that good at design. I don't really like drawing or painting or like visual arts. So I kind of found my creativity came from being resourceful and working with what I got. So, for example, this podcast, when I first started it, I didn't use this really cool app that we're using right now called Riverside. I instead, when I had to record online, I used Discord, I used OBS. I recorded a screen share from OBS or from Discord into OBS into a file, and then like all the files and all that. My creativity came from resourcefulness. So that is, I wasn't like a visual type of creative. It was trying to solve a problem, I think was how I used my creative side. Another example, I guess, is when I worked with kids. I worked with one child who really struggled with being in the classroom, but he loved Fortnite. Because I came with this knowledge, I know what Fortnite is, I know how it works. I took like the battle pass design and then turned it into his like task sheet. It's like a token system. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but basically it's like check marks. You finish all these, you get a prize. And then I took the Fortnite. I gamified it. Yeah. So I would say my creativity comes out in that way. In like a resourcefulness way, not necessarily a visual way or a design way. Yeah.
I think just hearing you talk and thinking about this topic now, one of the reflection I have is that, it's very common, I think, for a lot of people, just to pivot a little bit into the world of work. We find satisfaction, I think, when we have the opportunity to be creative in our work. And it's when we don't have any chance to exercise creative control or make creative decisions is when work becomes less satisfying and fulfilling. When let's say you're just doing administrative job or clerical work, or you're just in a position where you don't have any decision-making authority, or you're not required to problem solve or come up with creative solutions. And so I think that's a very common phenomenon, right? I think for folks in work, I again, not just as more anecdotal, but I think that's pretty obvious. And I think if you extrapolate that in itself is evidence of how important play is in our lives in general. Because if we don't have play at work, I think that's when we don't have creative control over our work. And then if we don't have that, then it's not fulfilling. And so we need to find opportunities maybe outside of work as well to have those creative outlets. Otherwise, life just gets kind of boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone needs those 3 things. You need a creative hobby, one that makes money, which is probably your work, and one that keeps you healthy.
Yeah.
Cool. I know we kind of tangented. Creativity is something like pretty not tricky, but it's something that I've always wanted to do more of. Like before I did podcasting, I tried my hand at photography and Twitch streaming and making YouTube videos. So I would say those are all like creative endeavors, but none of them really stuck with me as much as podcasting so far. I think I just like talking.
Yeah, creativity is definitely something that I'm always trying to work on. I don't consider myself like a creative person. I was never good at like art or, you know, music or creating things like with my hands. So problem solving, that's a really good point, Samson. Definitely part of creativity. So we don't always think about that. I think when we think of creativity, we think of like, you know, drawing or being able to create some kind of music or art.
Music.
But thinking outside of the box and coming up with creative solutions is definitely part of creativity. And you're right, David, like that's when I do feel good about my job, is if I can think of an idea or a solution that's outside of what we normally do.
Exactly.
And that if we can actually implement them, that would be it's another story.
Yeah.
Well, I think for all of us here, and I know G, when you and I first started this podcast, you're like, you did say that to me. You're like, I don't really consider myself a creative person, so this would be a good challenge for me. Like, it would challenge me to try and be creative.
Yeah.
I think, Samson, you probably agree that the podcast has been a creative endeavor for you. I want to hear a bit more about your experience with that. Specifically, if you've learned anything about play, because in the sense that you're interviewing such a wide variety of folks on your podcast. They're not just gamers, right? You've interviewed other folks as well. Have you learned anything from, or what have you learned from all those conversations you've had on your podcast?
Yeah. Actually, going back, I think way back early in the year when I started the podcast, I reached out to you, David, actually, and I shared this project with you. And then one of the things you asked me was something like what is the point? Like, what is the point of this podcast?
Was I so rude? Yeah.
No. It was good. It was necessary because I needed to know, like, oh, this is not just me pulling in cool people to talk. Like, what is my value add, I guess. So from that, I kind of expanded my horizons. Like, oh, like what is play? Play is not just video games. When I first started the podcast, I wanted to focus only on games. But then the more and more I looked into it, it's like, oh, wait, like people do different things to get the same effect of what I do when I play video games or what my video game community does when they get video games. So that's kind of how I expanded into stuff like Saffron came on and she talked about how she likes to long distance bike and run. I had like a teachers or childhood workers come in and talk about how they gamify the classroom. So these elements of play and doing stuff not to make money and doing stuff to work on the skills completely separate from their work, that I started looking for guests in that realm. I think the podcast, the guests showed me that there's a wide breadth of people out there that play and it just looks different. I think that kind of belief reinforces my kind of belief at working with kids is like, just because they're doing one thing or showing one thing doesn't mean in their head it means this exactly. Like, for example, if a kid is jumping up and down on their chair in the classroom, it doesn't mean they want to disrupt the classroom. There's probably another need that they're fulfilling that's making them need to jump up and down in the classroom. I think that perspective shift is really important, not just working with kids, but also in like common lives. Like, why are people doing certain behaviors? All behaviors come from a certain need. So it's a long-winded way of saying like play and that how it looks, long distance biking, playing video games, being creative, making art fulfills a need in someone where maybe it's creative, maybe it's emotional, or like just practicing those gross or fine motor skills. Play is a way to fulfill those needs that someone has in their life.
Yeah, I really like how your podcast kind of showcases the different types of play. Samson, I think when I first heard about your podcast, I thought, oh, this is a video game podcast. You know, that's cool. It's not something that like I might personally relate to or be interested in. But after looking through some of your podcasts and listening to a few, like you invited guests who have that kind of play aspect, whether it's in their career or whether they do that in their everyday lives, is showcase like the breadth of play that's possible. I think that actually showcased the creativity that you have, because you're inviting all these people that might just like have some form of play, even though that's not exactly their profession, or it is their profession, but they kind of like gamify their work when it's not actually related to gaming or play, right? So.
Yeah, and a big part of that is also like I want to show off. Well, goes back to like I don't know if you've heard it from your parents. My parents are like, "When are you done playing with games?" I remember my late grandpa said
Never.
like. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, like you're, I don't know. I think I was like 24, 25 at the time. And he's like, oh, are you done playing with games now? Like you're entering your career. And
Yeah,
I'm
are
like,
you growing up yet?
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, no, I don't think I'll ever stop playing. Like, and I drew the comparison. It was like on the spot where I kind of also realized and like told him like, oh, I think this is like you watch TV for fun. You play mahjong once in a while for fun. Like, why isn't video games the exact same thing as that? It's entertain. Yeah, drop the mic. No, I had to sit and have some dinner and like moved on to other things. But part of the podcast is also I want to show the world, like show people that like play is okay. It's okay to indulge in these things and look at the value that it's bringing to our lives. It's not just entertainment. It's not just a waste of time. This is how it integrates into our lives. And yeah, the goal is to bring on different types of people. Like, for example, Philip is someone who first loved to make content and now it's his career. Like he chose to make his hobby his livelihood. Someone like Chris Lightforce, he doesn't necessarily play sports directly, but he watches hockey, is very passionate about hockey, very passionate about the Overwatch League, and now it's like his way of finding community, and he builds a podcast around it. So part of it is showcasing these guests about how play integrates into our day-to-day lives, how it can lead to different opportunities, and how it's part of the human experience.
Do you think play, because you've said a few times now that play is something you do for fun in part. I mean, there's other definitions too, but part of the definition is something you do for fun that doesn't make you money. So what happens once your hobby starts making you money? Does it stop being play?
That's tricky. I think it's definitely a little existential question because
at least one existential question per podcast. Come on.
No. So I have a buddy. I won't name him. Really close friend of mine. Like he's part of that Discord group that we play with every night, and I don't want to speak on his behalf, but from my perspective, I see that he's an artist. He works at a big technology company now doing concept art for them. Ever since I've known him growing up, he was always an artist. And then as we grew and I saw his hobby, his passion become his work, there was kind of like a blurred line between what is work, what is enjoyment. And it's tricky because the work he enjoys at the same time when it's not art that he has to do, he doesn't enjoy. So there's like a really blurred line of what is work, what is play, which is doing art for himself. What in my observation, what happened was he became very like stuck in that shell. And I challenged him to pick something like completely way different, like just try something completely new. And that can be your form of play where you practice those other skills. I think now they do HEMA, like European martial arts where you use swords and stuff and fight. Yeah, it's like, oh, cool. That's crazy. That's awesome. Like play kind of became their career, and it was, for a while, it was pretty tricky because, I'm done my day job of drawing. I'm going to go back to drawing. So it's like, what, like, is there a distinction? Is that mentally healthy for you? In the end, you're not practicing those separate skills. But yeah, it is a tricky question. I don't think I have an answer for it, to be honest. I know with my podcast, like it'd be great to make money off it one day, and become like a big studio where I can have like you both in person in the studio. But then it becomes work, and I don't know if that is something that I'm ready for yet.
Well, I think there's definitely the notion, and you see a lot of people with really great skills, maybe at drawing, or they're really creative in some aspect. Maybe they design something or make something, but they don't want to actually turn it into work. And when you ask them, like, why you're so talented, they say, you know, once it becomes a job, it maybe takes some of the fun out of it. You know,
Yeah.
I want to do
I've heard
this
that.
because it's my creative outlet. It's outside of my job. It's something that I can do for fun. That's why people volunteer too, right? Like once you turn it into a job, it becomes a bit less fulfilling in a way. So there's definitely that line, like you said, because you also want to love your job. So you want to do something that you're good at and that fulfills you. But at the same time, if that thing is your hobby, sometimes that kind of diminishes like how much you might enjoy it.
Totally. Yeah, it's the bringing in like a third party that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Yeah, doing stuff for money, because it's always you always see the opportunity there. It's like, oh, you're so good at this, why not charge people money for it and make some extra dollars? But then you're introducing like deadlines and another voice saying like, hey, I want this redone, and
Less control.
Yeah, less control.
So we've talked a lot about how really trying to demystify if there's any folks who still feel negatively towards video games, you know, a lot of those benefits. I think one of the main reasons why people do, if they do have a negative attitude towards video games, it's because so often they see people addicted to video games. It takes over their life and it's unhealthy. So I don't know if you have anything you want to speak to, Samson, about if there are any risks to too much play, or how do you find that balance, or other forms of play that you think are also risky or are a net negative.
I'd love to share about that. I think, like, caveat again, I'm not a psychologist or doctor or expert or counselor. I think going back to what I said briefly earlier, all behavior comes from a need that needs to be fulfilled. Like if we're hungry, we'll eat. If we're thirsty, we'll drink water. So I think when people get addicted to something, it's kind of separate from the game. Like they could be addicted to anything. I think gambling is a really common one because of that. Super easy, push a button and you get a shot of dopamine from the colors and the lights and money. So addiction comes from some sort of unmet need in that individual that needs to be met in a different way. I think, a really common thing that I don't know about you both, but that I came up with is like, we're going to be addicted to video games if we keep playing. But I feel like that need is actually something else. Definitely looking back now as a kid, we were addicted to video games was because we were actually chatting with our friends at the same time, and leveling up in MapleStory actually gave us something to talk about on the playground or at church the next week. So that was the part that we were playing games for and grinding for. But in broader terms, for addiction and people like getting addicted to mobile games are very common for this, like those gacha mechanics, those gambling mechanics. There's a different need there that is not being met, but the game is fulfilling that. It's different from person to person, but that's kind of my perspective on it. Yeah,
I think that's a really good distinction to draw between addiction and this and game is just, it's kind of like, let's say you are hungry and then you eat a lot of X food or Y food. Well, it's not about the food. It's just you're hungry. And so you just happen to eat a lot of this or that. And the real issue here is your hunger. It's not the food. The food is just the way you satiate that need that you have. And so I think that's an important thing to keep in mind so that we don't unfairly demonize or make video games or whatnot the villain. I mean, I have a very addictive personality, and so maybe I need to go and see a psychologist and see what's going on there. Only half joking. But like the reason I don't play video games is because I have no self-discipline and I get addicted and it takes over my life. I like video games too much. And I wonder if there's, going on what you're saying, which I do agree. I know we're not psychologists here, but going on what you're saying, it makes sense. It's like there's probably some sort of, there's some unmet need that video game is giving me a chance to satisfy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes it's to even like avoid something. You're playing a game or you're addicted to something to try and avoid having to do something else. So
right.
like this is like, you're stuck in it.
Do you get addicted to anything, G? Like you're a pretty well-adjusted individual, I feel like.
Like social media, I would say. And I do like, if I'm binging on a TV show, like that's why I say it's to avoid something else. It's probably because I'm trying to avoid like, I don't know, doing chores or doing the things that I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that I enjoy this TV show so much that I can't look away. It's that this is something that is mindless and I don't have to do the things that I don't want to do. So,
yeah. Circling back to the beginning, I would say like my vice, my addiction is definitely coffee. But that's because I don't like
that. I think is I think the caffeine is actually addictive. So
yeah, well, true, yeah. But like I actually don't like being tired. I think it's like, and this is ironic, right? Like I preached for an hour now about how you should do stuff with no purpose, do stuff for fun. But I'm like, if I'm not productive, I'm not using my day to its max. So that's why I like coffee. I'm like, it gives me that shot of energy. Coke Zero as well.
It's such a fine line because I think if you could play video games for 5 hours, but then you can also just get all your shit done. And then therefore, is it a problem? Maybe not. But if it becomes a problem to where it affects other aspects of your life and affects the things that you're supposed to be doing, like adulting, basically, then that's kind of where it becomes a problem. So I don't really think there's even like a specific time frame or threshold to where you can play. I think personally for me, it's like as long as it's not affecting your daily life.
Yeah. I think addiction should be clarified as like you literally can't think of anything else until you do this thing or get this thing. So like my day to day would be like, I can't. I literally can't get up in the morning unless I play a round of Overwatch or something. That would be classified as addiction. But like you said, like playing for 5 hours after you did all your stuff, like that's not addiction. That's just using your time the way you want it.
So I don't know if you have any advice on this, but in case you do, if there are folks listening to this and they're like, you know what, these people sound like they're having a lot of fun in their lives. I want to have more fun too, but I just have no time for it. How can people add more play into their lives, especially when they already feel they don't have any time for it? So like, does it mean that should they go to more dinner parties?
More board game, more dinner parties.
Yeah, more board games. I don't know. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. I think everyone's different. I think everyone's hobbies are totally up to them. So it's hard to say like what's the one size fits all answer to how to have fun. I know some people that find fun in the train ride home after work, just playing like a game on their phone. Some people have fun listening to podcasts just like this. I think for those who want to maybe try video games as a form of fun, there's this really cool thing called the Xbox Game Pass that is the Netflix of video games. You pay once and you get access to all these games. Pay month by month.
Are you sponsored?
It is. I should have a referral code somewhere. That's one way if you want to do video games. As well as I think the world's greatest resource, and this is kind of separate, is YouTube. Not just watching YouTube videos, but learning skills. I think the only streaming subscription I pay for is YouTube Premium, just to avoid the ads. But that's because I'm learning so much about everything on YouTube. So, some of it is like garbage. Some of it is not well researched, but a lot of the good ones do surface, as well as like hard skills like running a podcast, how to interview, how to do design. All that I learned from YouTube. So if there's like a new hobby that you want to get into, or a new skill you want to learn, definitely look up videos on YouTube. Like it's crazy that it's free. And then for like I guess overall, no matter what you try and try to find fun, it's okay to like fail. And by fail, I mean like you didn't have fun. It's okay that happens. Just try again, maybe try something else. And the other thing is connection. Definitely go into this with the intention to make new relationships, or go in with somebody that you have a relationship with, like a friend or a significant other. It's always more fun when you have somebody else to do it with.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say it's a good point, because when people look at their schedules, especially if, you know, they're a parent or they have a really busy schedule, if you told them to get rid of one thing, it's probably the thing that they do like for fun, because that's the thing that's easiest to get rid of. But actually, I consider going to a workout class to be play and fun. And a lot of the moms there say that this time for themselves actually help the rest of their help align the rest of their life together, and taking that time for themselves helps in other aspects of their life too, to do the things they need to do. They're more productive, they're more focused, and things like that. So it's important for the other aspects. Yeah.
I think I think that belief is definitely being more and more common in my anecdotal observation. But we should celebrate it. We should be like, yeah, you go take time away from your family and your responsibilities and do something for yourself. I think we should really praise that and positively reinforce that kind of thinking and behavior.
It's hard because this society celebrates being busy so much, being productive so much. Like I'm fully in that. I have that mentality for myself. So it's hard to push back against that when everything is moving you towards that direction of like, are you being productive? Are you contributing? Are you making more money?
There's
a lot of guilt and shame, or I don't know what, some unhealthy emotions attached to trying to incorporate more play and fun in our lives, which is just kind of sad if you think about it, because
live your life.
And that's I totally agree with that. It's like speaking with my background, like my parents are Asian and they're immigrants. I'm first generation Canadian. I forget how that works, but
I don't know how that works either.
But it's always like work hard. Playing is like it's number 5 on your list of responsibilities in life. So my rebellion to that, my rebelliousness to that is to celebrate how play integrates into our lives and how it can actually positively help you be productive and help you in your work. It's all one and the same.
So that's amazing. I think we covered so many sort of interesting topics. At least I found it really, really interesting. Is there anything that we didn't get a chance to go over that you want to quickly touch upon, Samson, or did we sort of go over all your talking points?
I think I think the one thing I'll leave is that whatever you pick for fun, make sure it's something a little different than your day-to-day work. I find that people like it's easy to blend work and play or work and entertainment. Like, oh, my friend group is all my same employees at work. Like whatever you choose to play, see if you can take that risk of going somewhere like a complete 180 from what you do at work. It is really scary because perfect.
I'm on
dinner
board.
Parties. Like that's the risky play aspect as adults. It's putting yourself in new situations, something you don't know, and in the end, like if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Like part of playing and learning, part of learning is failing. That is how we all learn. So.
Wise words.
Awesome.
Well, we certainly talked about your podcast a lot. This is your plug, whatever you want to plug, your socials. Where can people find you or your pod or anything else that you are involved with?
Yeah. So once again, my name is Samson. I am just a dude with a microphone on the internet. But if you liked what I said and talked about, you can find me at SamsonXP on all the socials. I'm most active on Instagram and Twitter, now X. If you want to check out the podcast, which I recommend you do, I am like starting new shows on it, which is insane. It is at Grow Up Level Up on all the socials. It's at Grow Up Level Up on YouTube. That's Grow Up Level Up. And I do interviews with folks from all different kinds of industries about how play integrates into their day-to-day lives. I've talked to teachers, I've talked to data analysts, I've talked to people who work in the video game industry, just about how games influence their lives, not only as a kid, but also as adults, and how they continue to let games and fun and hobbies integrate into their lives. The goal of that is just to inspire you to see the value of what you're doing for fun, and to maybe think about different ways you can have fun as well. That is the main Grow Up Level Up show. I also am just starting a new project with my friend Samantha Dowdell, where called You Grow Up Level Up, as in University of Grow Up Level Up, where we talk about different life skills that you can integrate into your lives, stuff like time management. What should your morning routine look like? What should your night routine look like? That is a fun experiment we're trying, just to see if we can bring value to you as a listener. And the last one is extremely, extremely niche. There is a league for Overwatch called Overwatch League that has sadly ended after 6 years. And since it is one of my passions that I find fun in and relationship in, I decided to put a little show where I interview fans and have them reminisce on the last 6 years of being part of this global video game tournament. So those are my 3 shows on at Grow Up Level Up. You can find it growuplevelup.com or on YouTube or on podcast, actually. Yeah.
Where do you find a time for all that?
That is legit. That is cool.
honestly, I am working like in between all parts of the hour. That train ride home from downtown, I pop the laptop open and start editing and,
Wow.
and all that.
That's hardworking. Good on you, man.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I want to ask a fun last question. I know that was supposed to be a last question, but just to give you that platform a little bit, what are your top 5 video games?
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's a loaded question.
I know it's a loaded question, but I got to ask.
Okay. So number 1 would probably be Overwatch, or Overwatch 2.
No surprises.
Yeah. That's it's controversial in the gaming realm because of its weird history, but I really like the characters. I like the message it sells. It's telling the world that we can all be heroes. We can all be better people. So big fan of that. I also just like shooting and teamwork. Pokemon Black and White is probably one that has stuck out to me. And that's like kind of like a childhood game. The reason for that is that's the first time they like rebooted the world, where there was no old Pokemon, and I think it came at an interesting time. I think I was like
Pokemon.
So I think I was like Gen 5, so the first like 15 years, the game you put in, there was like none of the old 151 Pokemon. They so every Pokemon you met was like new, at least to me, because I didn't check any of the stuff online. Everything I checked was like, or all the Pokemon were like new. I was like feeling that sense of childhood wonder again, as if I was playing. Yeah.
I should play that.
Yeah, Black and White. Let's see. Next one. This game I've been playing for like a year now, every day. It's called Marvel Snap. That is a game that it's a free game on your phone. It's got all the Marvel characters, and it's a card game where the games only last like 2 to 3 minutes at
This
max.
sounds so dangerous, man.
You are getting David down a
sounds so
wrong
dangerous.
path.
David's making notes.
This is the wrong rabbit
It's a phone game. Yeah. No, that yeah, it's free. Yeah.
I love card games. I was addicted to Hearthstone for a long time.
And you know what? The lead designer of Hearthstone is the director of Marvel Snap. So he's brought all those skills over.
He's gonna have to use his Freedom app on all these games
To block.
now.
Block
Block
this
all
Marvel
these
Snap.
apps.
True.
God.
True. I would say It Takes Two is also in my top 5.
Oh, wow.
I think
That's awesome.
that like I said, my fiance and I played through that online, and it was one of those rare games that we like practice those skills of conflict resolution, of like timing, of teamwork. At the same time, it had a very beautiful story. It was presented very beautifully. Yeah, we like laughed, we cried. So that is really rare in lots of video games, especially. Like, story's hard to do, and yeah, that game is definitely very, very special.
I think, and it's also very accessible even for non-gamers, right? Because it's got that relatable theme and that cooperative fun aspect.
Yeah, and the game controls are also relatively simple. You just move your character and you jump for most of the game, which is great. And actually, one more thing I really like about It Takes Two is it goes through different genres of games as you go through the levels. So at one point, the games become like a top-down, like Diablo. You're not jumping and moving anymore. You're like firing abilities, and your character moves. I don't know how to show this on podcast. It moves side by side instead of
it's a bird's eye
3D
view.
space. Yeah, bird's eye view. Yeah, and my last number 5. I think I'll have to shout out an entire series called the Jackbox Party Pack.
I play that.
Yeah.
I play that with my friends.
Yeah. It's cool, right? It's and it's cheating because it's like technically like, well, more than 10.
It's a ton of games.
It's a ton of games. Yeah. And that is cool because I've played it with my non-gamer friends. It's great for parties. I
like
could play it
online, basically.
Yeah. But you can be as like dirty or weird as you want
sometimes.
Yeah. So Jackbox is a game where you don't need a controller. You don't even need to know how to play video games. You like log in from your phone or your computer, and you type in prompts, you draw, you like do trivia. They're all different types of games. Some are like, most are good. Some are like meh. The new one's actually coming out next week as well. So the Jackbox Party Pack has hit with so many different demographics, from like my core gamer friend group, which we enjoy playing once in a while, to like my non-gamer friends from school who are all like women and moms.
Interesting.
So I'd say those are my top 5.
That's awesome.
That's great. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our conversation for today. Thank you, Samson, for coming on today and for reaching out to us. It's very cool to talk to another like podcaster, someone else who does this, because they can talk about the guests that they've interviewed and things that they've learned. So really appreciate you taking the time today to come on to our podcast. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the invite. I am like I said, like you said, big fan of other podcasters. I understand the work and the grind. So thanks for having me on and letting me share like my story and my interests. Rarely do I get to be a guest.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed having you on, Samson. And if all of you listening enjoyed this conversation, please feel free to give us a follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening. And we're on YouTube, so if you want to look at our faces and see us talk, find us there at That 30s Show Pod on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. And shoot us an email, that30showpod@gmail.com. And DM us on Instagram. Let us know what you think. Give us some feedback. Give us some suggestions. And if you want to come on the show, tell us about your unique life experience. We would love that. Just let us know. But until next week, I think that's all we have for this week. I think when this releases, it'll be late October. So happy Halloween, I guess. Or not quite yet. Exciting. But it's coming up. Hopefully you all got your costumes on.
Nope.
And yeah, I'm saying that ironically because I don't like costumes. Okay. Get creative. All right. That's all. Okay. All right. Talk to you next time. Bye. Bye.